name is Kim Overall, and today I'm going to talk with you about sex trafficking. I'm sure many of you have seen the movie Taken, but if you haven't seen this movie, it deals with sex trafficking. Specifically, a man's daughter is kidnapped in Paris while she's following a band on tour with her friend. They are put up for an auction and forced into sex trafficking. At the end of the movie, her dad ends up finding her and saves the day. Now, that is a movie. For real life instances of sex trafficking, there's not always a happy ending. Young, vulnerable people, including college students, are targeted and enticed with monetary benefits or vacations. This could be your friend, your sibling, your child, or your spouse. Unlike the movie, victims' successful return rate is low, and if they are returned, there is a lifetime of trauma that they have to deal with throughout their lives. Sex trafficking has had an uprise in the past year. That is why I am here today to persuade you to help prevent the tragedy of sex trafficking on your family and others. First, I would like to explain what sex trafficking really is. Then I will identify the targets, lure tactics, and high-risk areas. Next, I will share some of sex trafficking survivor stories. And lastly, I will inform you on ways to help prevent and encourage you to become involved in the fight against sex trafficking. To begin, let's dive right into what sex trafficking is. Sex trafficking is often confused with prostitution, but the difference can be defined by the word trafficking. Trafficking is to deal or trade in something illegal. Sex trafficking is exploiting a human by force to engage in commercial sexual acts. A commercial sex act is when something of monetary value is traded for a sexual favor. According to Serotoninist Volunteer Organization for Women, the human trafficking black market is worth $32 billion annually. Next, let's discuss the who's, where's, and how's of sex trafficking. Traffickers rely on vulnerability, poor financial statuses, and opportunity for their targets. Women and children are a top target group for traffickers. Approximately 800,000 people are trafficked across international border lines annually, and of these 80% are women and girls, and 50% are minors. Specifically, women and children 18 and under, because they are more commonly lack of stability and can be easily groomed with false promises of shelter, food, or extravagant gifts. Sex trafficking is a global issue. Now, on this map, you can see that Russia, China, and Nigeria are high traffic areas. India, Brazil, and Mexico are right behind them in high traffic. And Canada, Alaska, and the U.S. are in low traffic areas. Although we are low, around 14,000 to 17,000 people are trafficked in the U.S., according to MD Noor and B.A. Desponday's journal, Review in Obstetrics and Gynecology. Unfortunately, we cannot save everyone, but we can start locally. Some places to be aware of around your city and town are massage parlors, clubs, and even playgrounds. Always pay attention to people around playgrounds that don't have kids themselves. Sex traffickers have many different strategies they utilize to groom their targets. For targets of poor economic status and or runaways, they make false promises of shelter and food. Traffickers know that extravagant gifts and trips will attract or interest adolescents and some women. They will blackmail you or threaten harm to you or your loved ones. And lastly, they will use fraud to pose as someone they are not. In today's time, that's quite common. With technological advances in all our social media sites. Now, I would like to share with you some trafficking victims' experiences and or testimonies. Each victim's experience is different, and I ask for you to listen with your hearts and not judge with your minds, as I share with you these brave women's testimonies from Equality Now for trafficking survivors. My first victim is Alma. Alma was a waitress at a club that was struggling to support her 2 children when her boss used blackmail to traffic her. Alma states, "During my 4 years at the club, I had about 30 American boyfriends. In early 1980s, there were no health programs and nobody knew how to use contraceptives. The Ameri-Asian child population boomed. I gave birth to my 3rd child knowing he would never meet his father." My second victim is Grace. Grace was trafficked to pay off family debt and sent to another country. Grace states, once I arrived, I was told that my debt was 50,000 euro. That's around $67,000 US dollars, which I realized would take a very long time to repay. My family's contact then told me that to pay the debt, I would be working as a prostitute in brothels, which are legalized in Germany. It was then that I realized that my family's contact was a madam. I refused and called my parents to explain what was happening, but they told me to obey her and to do whatever she told me to do. I didn't have any papers and I didn't know my rights. She said that if I called anyone or asked anyone for help, I would be deported. So I didn't think I had much of a choice but to become a prostitute. Now that you have heard these touching testimonies, let's get involved. Join the fight against anti-human trafficking. Volunteer at shelters for trafficking victims such as Anchors of Hope. Donate to help with recovery of victims. The donations will go towards housing, clothes, and trauma counseling. Pay attention to your surroundings and report any suspicion of brothels or if you know someone that is being groomed for trafficking. Finally, I would like to summarize the information I've given to you on human trafficking and encourage you to join the fight. Now I have informed you on what sex trafficking is and the targets, lures, and high-risk areas. You have heard the brave testimony of women that have gone through this tragedy and have overcome it. I have also provided you with information on how to fight against sex trafficking. Sex trafficking had roughly 2,000 more reported cases in 2016 than 2015. That is a spike that we all can work together to bring down. With the information I have given you today and the organizations I've introduced to you like Equality Now and Anchors of Hope, I encourage you to get involved and possibly save your next door neighbor's child or even one of your loved ones.